Usually when you get an early IMAX release of a movie, there's a pre-show before the movie actually starts where one of the actors and or the directors thanks us for coming. They express how gracious they are to be showing a movie to audiences for the first time and generally give what the movie meant to them in a nutshell. And in this case, Ryan Gosling and director David Leitch, after telling people to put their phones away, that was really a nice touch. They described this movie as a love letter to the stunt community, showing just how much hard work and effort goes into making actors look even better and making themselves technically the unsung heroes of most action movies. And I'll say this, when it is a love letter to the stunt community, it's a lot of fun to watch. The action scenes were so cool. They had steady camera work, not too many cuts. In fact, there are so many hits and impacts done in one take just to show that it is someone doing it for real. In fact, the end credits of this movie is just basically B-roll footage of the actors and stunt people doing some of the best moments in the movie. And there were some times where I thought for sure watching the movie that there actually was a good chunk of CGI added in. But no, when Ryan Gosling is riding a dumpster truck in the middle of the road, sparks flying everywhere, that was actually real. I couldn't believe it, but it was a pleasant surprise. The climax especially was a lot of fun to watch. It had the most creative set pieces like Gosling riding a camera crane in the middle of a set, or an army of stunt people taking on mercenaries in the only way that they can with the choreography and equipment that they've been trained for. Whenever a scene is filmed on an actual location and the directors are arguing back and forth with the crew and the actors, a lot of these scenes are done in long takes with 360 angles just to show how chaotic, loud, and frustrating a film set can really be. Whenever the movie's about the film industry and how committed and passionate are the people in front of and behind the camera are to make movies, the amount of attention to detail and just showing the filmmaking process, how it begins to the final product, is absolutely outstanding. There are even scene transitions at the beginning of the movie where it looks like they're typing it out on a script, and little moments like that are really cool. But for a movie that's supposed to be a love letter to the stunt community, there is a lot of screen time that is spent on thinly written characters, a simple story that is dragged out way too damn long, and a romance that is so fucking contrived that the stunt workers, surprisingly, don't really get that much time to shine. Now look, I'm not saying every movie about filmmaking has to be like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which, by the way, is Melvin's favorite movie. He just won't admit it. But what I love about that film, amongst other things, is that we understand why the characters in it love filmmaking, what drew it to them, where the creative passion comes from, so that we can actually enjoy them in their spare time when they're not making movies, when they're just sitting down and talking, which again, is a good chunk of that film too. Cliff Booth was a well-defined character whether we saw him as a stuntman or a regular guy, because we understood that he loved the thrill of danger, but if he has to settle for a more modest life, as long as there are people around him who care for him, he'll settle for it if he has to. I, for the life of me, couldn't tell you why Gosling's character wanted to be a stuntman, why it meant so much to him, or the same thing with Emily Blunt. Why does she want to be a director so badly? What is it about this movie that drew it to her? Winston Duke, I think, has one or two moments where he's about to quote a one-liner and he and Gosling geek out about it, and those parts were legitimately fun, but they're few and far between. Beyond that, he's just the best friend. And don't get me wrong, most of the actors are good in this. Most of them. We'll get to that later. It's just they're given a script that is 90% exposition when it did not need to be. The story for this is so simple, and yet they either draw it out or dumb it down way too often, even though, to be honest, the villain's motivation is so dumb and simple that it actually is kind of refreshing, even though, I gotta say, the villain's evil plan in this is eerily similar to an incident that happened on a film set during the pandemic. It's a bit of a coincidence, guys. I know there was a similar incident on a film set in the 90s that Leitch was a part of, and that was probably the direct inspiration for this, but still, it's kind of fucked up. We get so many jokes that don't land when they should have. I mean, one of the first fights in this movie, Gosling does while he's high as a kite, and the after effects should have been hilarious, but to be honest, there's only one of them and they drop it after a few minutes anyways. In fact, there are a lot of running gags that are either dragged out way too damn long or are completely ditched halfway through. For the first half of the movie, Ryan Gosling is constantly craving coffee, but he's always being interrupted. I don't get it. So much screen time is spent on Hannah Waddingham being one of the most insufferable characters I've ever seen. That may change very soon, you'll be the first to know, but It's even more disappointing when you know that it's the lady from Ted Lasso, because she's great in that. But here, not once did she land a joke. Every line out of her mouth I've heard a billion times in a billion other movies. And there's a twist surrounding her character that was so painfully obvious a half hour in, but they wait another hour to get to it. As if we seriously have never seen that twist or this character in a million other movies. And the fucking romance in this. All the trailers make this out to be like Stuntman movie first, love story second, and to be honest, the film keeps going back and forth on which one is the A or B plot, because there is so much downtime in between the actual plot of the film where Gosling is constantly pitying himself for losing Emily Blunt, and Blunt being unnecessarily cruel and vengeful towards him. And look, I understand that technically he was the bad guy in the relationship, he was the one who broke it off unjustly, and I will admit that, but at the same time, he literally almost fucking died doing a stunt 5 minutes in that you saw with your own eyes, lady. Like, and yet you constantly keep accusing him of making the relationship into a fling, even though it was painfully obvious that he didn't leave you because he didn't love you. He left you because he thought that he didn't deserve you. Like, he clearly needs help. You could have gotten him like a counselor or something like that, which is a shame, because in the last third of the movie where the two of them are actually listening to one another, they have great chemistry. They have a believable relationship. But when you spend an hour or so of them constantly going back and forth between being in the friend zone or bickering over the past, very inconsistently, to the point where in one scene she's mad at him and in the other it's like water under the bridge, and then right back to being angry. Were there deleted scenes? I feel like I missed something. Look, bottom line, if you're going to make a relationship a B plot or A plot, because again, this movie couldn't make up its mind on that, I need a reason to care for the two of them, especially when there are like 10-20 minutes go by without a stunt or an action scene and it's just the two of them talking. I need to actually enjoy what the two of them are talking about. So yeah, the Fall Guy is pretty unfocused when it comes to story and characters. I didn't even get to the part where Aaron Taylor-Johnston is this action star who looks like hot shit, but in reality can't do a single stunt. Doesn't even really get that many moments to shine as a diva. It spends just as much, if not more time, on a generic love story we've seen a billion times instead of the love story towards the people behind the camera that's a lot more interesting. But at the same time, the love story they set out to make is still there. The stunt work is really cool. The actors doing the stunts are cool. The stuntmen who get shouted out at the end of the film, also phenomenal work. And David Leitch can be a great filmmaker, but as opposed to Chad Stahelski, who stuck with what he was good at and evolved, it seems like Leitch is trying to make his own franchise and is still searching. Here's hoping with his next movie he either commits mainly to the action or he puts as much into the story as he does the action, because when characters are sitting down and just talking, it can't be boring. We need to care. And with that, guys, thanks as always for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of The Fall Guy. Be sure to stay tuned for more reviews. Be sure to check me out on Patreon and buy me a coffee. And be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.